I first want to just introduce our interviewer, our moderator for the morning. She's an Emmy Award-winning news anchor for Wish TV on the 5, 6, 10, and 11 p.m. newscasts. Prior to coming to Indianapolis with Wish, she was in Wichita, Kansas, and Macon, Georgia. She's originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and went to school at Temple University studying broadcasting and political science. She's married to her husband, Cole. They have a young son, Max. And this past March, she went through something no parent ever wants to go through when she gave birth to their daughter, and she died within a few hours. And so Emma Noel was her name, and I just would like for you guys all to help me in welcoming Brooke Martin. Let's stand.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting that. So good to be here with you today. When Dave asked if I would be available to do this fireside chat, I think he got out Allison Melangton, and I was like, yes. If anyone knows Allison, she's a very special person. I'm not AC. If you have been to the EdgeX, he is a very good friend of mine, but I have half the energy and none of the cookies to hand out. So I apologize on the outset for that. But I want to talk about Allison because her resume absolutely breaks the mold. I hope you don't feel worse about yourself when you leave. I hope you feel better because she is an inspiration. She is currently the senior vice president at Holman Motorsports. She is responsible for overall production of major events and planning at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Anyone at the 500 this year? Yeah? She was also the CEO of the 2012 Super Bowl host committee. Who was at that? Super Bowl? Yeah? Yeah. Do you agree it was the most successful, like the best? Yeah. Yeah. That also, by the way, made her the second female host committee CEO in 46 Super Bowls. Yeah. She served as president of the Indiana Sports Corporation, where she worked for 20 years in various roles. She has worked in 9 Olympic Games, winning 5 Emmy Awards for her work as a member of the NBC Sports broadcast team. She serves on many of the city's most important boards, including Edge. She was honored with a Sagamore of the Wabash by Governor Mitch Daniels in 2012, recognized as a living legend by the Indiana Historical Society in 2014. Her accolades go on and on with 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards, the Jefferson Award for Community Impact, and College Mentors for Kids. But talk to Allison for any length of time and you will quickly understand that her most prized possession is her family. Her husband, Tom, of 32 years, and her son, Cameron, who is now 26. And I have the absolute privilege and honor to call her my friend. Please give a warm welcome to Allison Melangton.
Thank you. Good morning. I cannot tell you what a great privilege and honor it is for me to start my morning with all of you. I hope this is the best part of your week because it's definitely going to be the best part of my week to start this out today. So thank you for coming today.
Well, we know that you are busy, a busy woman, so thanks for taking some time to be with us this morning. Is June your most chill month after the month of May?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. June is great. There's a couple staff members here from the track. They had to roll right into other events quickly, so they're not going to say June's their best month. But for me, I got to take a few days off, rest and relax, and then get back to it. So yes, June's good.
Okay, so we're also curious, I know. Talk about the month of May in general. How has it been with your transition? Give us a snapshot of that month for you.
You know, I absolutely love working at the track. I went there because the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500 matter a lot to Indiana. They matter for jobs, it matters for the economy, and it is still and always will be the largest single-day sporting event in the world. And for that to be hosted here in Indiana is a huge privilege. And I went to the track because I wanted to make sure at some point in my career, I worked on the biggest event in the world right here in the town that I'm living. And I couldn't love it more. We plan all year, even though at the track we have over 200 events a year, but starting 100 days out, we better be ready, which is about February 15th. And so from February 15th all the way through the race, it is a sprint every single day, all day. And we have the most amazing staff. And I attract to jobs where the people are the best part of the job. And we just have a great staff. So a snapshot is February 15th to race day. You know, it's an 18, 20 hour a day job every single day. But we get so much joy out of it because of the people and what we're doing. So I love it.
Were you a race fan before taking this gig?
You know, I've always been to the 500 since I moved here. I've been a casual race fan, but I'm now a race fan. The drivers and the people involved are just remarkable. I've worked with a lot of different professional athletes in a lot of sports in my career, and I would tell you that the drivers that we have through the IndyCar Series are just remarkable.
What do you think is the largest misconception about the 500?
I think there's two things. One is people are shocked how big it is. We just had Matt Damon and Christian Bale. Does everybody know who they are? Okay. They were here this year for the race, and they waved the green flag, and they were so shocked at how big and how overwhelming race day is. If you think about it, race day, we have as many people on property as 6 Super Bowls at the same time. So I thought the Super Bowl was a big event, and it is, but this event is 6 times that. And so when people actually come to the race and participate, celebrities or government officials or anyone, the biggest misconception is they had no idea how big it is. TV doesn't do it justice. And the second thing is, our demographics, only 20% of the people that come to the Indy 500 are actual race fans. 80% are epic event, people that want to be part of an epic event and see a big scene and be part of something huge, but they're not actual race fans. So people that haven't been to the race say, well, I've never come because I'm not necessarily a race fan. But a lot of people come, and if you've ever been in the snake pit, there's 30,000 millennials in there that don't even know there's a race going on. They have no idea there's race going on. So anyway, that's the second misconception.
All right, let's move on to just some rapid fire questions just to get to know Allison a little bit. Your favorite sports event that you've worked with?
100th running of the Indy 500, because it was the first time in history that it sold out.
Favorite unknown restaurant or spot in town?
Charlie Brown's in Speedway. Who's been there? Charlie Brown's, okay.
Not so unknown.
Diner, it's a diner. One of the only diners in town and left in existence, I think, in the United States.
What do you get?
Anything. They have it all.
All right, define leadership in one or a few words.
Inspiration through trust and example.
Are you writing this down? This is good stuff. What is one book, blog, or podcast you'd recommend?
Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage for All Leaders. It's a fantastic book.
One word to describe Indy.
Love Indy. I love Visit Indy's slogan, Love Indy. Everyone's, I'm sure, seen that at the airport and the track. Love Indy, because I do love Indy.
But you're not from Indiana, and I want to move on to that a little bit. You've been on record saying that you would never leave. Why is that? I love this community. I'm from Maine, so East Coast, and then I was in Colorado before I moved here, but I've been here since the 80s, so I think I'm a Hoosier, right? Everybody, I'm adopted now. I love the people here. It's why I'll never leave. And I had the opportunity in all my different jobs to, even though I was based here the last 30 years, of working events in other communities, working Final Fours in every other city that has them. I worked in 8 Super Bowl cities leading up to the Super Bowl that we had. And so I've had my share of sampling other communities and what it's like to work in those communities. But no place works the way this place works. And it's because of the people. Quick example, after the Super Bowl, they have this big after-action meeting where they call the leadership in, and you sit around a table with all the NFL division leaders, and the rumors were they hammer you for 4 hours about all the things you could have done differently. And so it wasn't something I was looking forward to doing after the Super Bowl, because the other cities had told me about it. And Mark Miles and I were going to New York for the after-action meeting, and I got to the airport that morning, and he wasn't there. And I kept thinking, well, he's usually late, but he's usually not this late. So I got on the plane, and he still wasn't there. Then I was getting nervous. So he
called me when I was sitting on the plane, and he said, listen, I can't go with you because my wife is sick. And I thought, well, how sick is she? She better be really sick if you're not going to go with me. I love Helen, though, so it's okay. So I went by myself, and I sat down with all the NFL leadership, and they started sort of going through, in transportation, this, just sort of giving you some feedback. And the third person that started talking pushed his chair back from the table, and he said, I think we have this all backwards. I think that Indianapolis did something no other city has ever done in the Super Bowl, and we need to listen to Allison versus us telling her what Indianapolis could have done better. We need to listen to Allison. And what Indianapolis did, this is his quote, not mine, what Indianapolis did that no other city had ever done was put a heart in the Super Bowl. Wow. And so that's why I love living here, and that's why I'll never leave.
Wow. You've had very demanding jobs throughout your career. You're also a wife, a mother. You're on a corporate board, many nonprofit boards. You always seem to have your act together. Has there ever been a time in your history where you felt overwhelmed?
Yes, absolutely. There's always a point in your life where at least for most of us, I think, where you almost have to hit reset. You say, okay, my life is too busy, I have too many commitments, or I'm sort of on that teetering edge of, putting your keys in the place you'll never remember, or your wallet in the refrigerator. I actually did something that I don't think most of you have done before. I had worked an event. My business in these events has always been, work a number of days for long hours, don't get enough sleep, don't eat right, and then sort of, regroup after and get your act together. And so I was in my mid-30s. I think my son was 3, working a ton. My husband was working a ton. And it was at the natatorium. Olympic swimming trials was the event I was working. And those of you who are swimmers, you're crazy because you start swimming at 5:30 in the morning, and then you have competition all day. Then you cool down at night to like midnight. So the people that are working the event have to be there for all that. So anyway, I live on the north side in Carmel, and I had been working all those days, very tired. I drove home, got home about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had to change my clothes, wash my clothes, because I was going into my last day, wanted to wear my uniform, threw it in the washer, slept for 2 hours, put it in the dryer, finished my hair and makeup, because I'm a girl and that's what we do. And I am one of the only living human beings that still wears a fanny pack. Any fanny pack wearers in here? Oh, we got a couple. They're coming back. Fanny packs are coming back, by the way. So I put on my shorts were wet around the waist, so I threw them back in the dryer, put my fanny pack on, finished my hair. I had to pick up 2 athletes at a hotel downtown. Sue's laughing because she and I have had a drink, and I've told her this story. Sue Elsperman here in the front row, she's already laughing at me, by the way, not with me, laughing at me. So I was late, looked at my watch, left my house, drove all the way downtown to pick up these 2 athletes at the Marriott, walked into the hotel lobby, and was waiting for them. And the bellman walked over to me and said, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And I said, "Yes, I'm tired, long week, but I'm okay." And he gave me that look like, "No, you're not." So I thought, okay, so his eyes looked down. So I looked down. And I was standing there in my underwear and my fanny pack and my shirt. But I thought I was so tired, I thought I had my pants on because I had my fanny pack on. So, and now you're all laughing at me too. So I said, you know what, you're right, I'm not okay. And I need to go regroup. So I went outside into the parking lot and got in my car, and I thought, seriously, I'm overwhelmed. I have too much on my plate. I'm exhausted because I actually went to work without my pants on, and I didn't know it. So I called a coworker. She came and got the athletes. I drove home. My kitchen, you have to go through my kitchen to get to my laundry room, so my husband was reading the newspaper, and at that point I'd been gone an hour and a half, and I walked by him. I didn't say anything, got my pants, walked back, and he said, "Hey, did you go to work without your pants?" I said, "I did." And he said, we need to talk tonight about that. So my husband has always been my anchor, and it's a reset moment, right? Because you have to then collect yourself. Go ahead and laugh at me; it's all right. But it was a moment where I said, I have to reset. I have to do something different in my life. I have to manage it differently, and it took that to get me there. Hopefully, you'll all change behavior before you get there. But so I don't always have my act together, Brooke.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more, because what are some just daily things so that you don't ever get to that point of reset? The daily resets. What are some things that we can all be doing?
Well, I will tell you, during Super Bowl, I had that 4 years of Super Bowl, I had a number of days that I almost got there again. And so I had to make sure I had disciplines in my life to not get there, because that was a long 4-year. I got a couple Super Bowl staff members in here, too. I saw Sean Hitchcock somewhere. Where is he? Raise your hand over here. That was a long journey of days, those 4 years. Best job ever. We all loved it, but it was exhausting. And I had to put some disciplines in place for me and for the staff to try to make sure not do that. And really relying on my faith at that point to not just say it was my compass, but let it be my compass, and know when I was getting to a point where I had to pull back and step back a little bit. So I put a couple disciplines in place. I created a prayer card. As many of you, I pray for other people all the time, and during that Super Bowl stint, it was hard to do that because of the schedule that we had. And so in the morning, I started, a friend suggested that I drive and pray at the same time, and I said, you don't know what kind of driver I am. That's a really bad idea, but I ended up making it work. And then at the end of the day, I have a card on my visor that says, "What did you do to honor God today?" And I flip it over every night, and on the way home, that's what I think about. What did I do to honor God today? And that helped me make sure that I was keeping that compass where it needed to be that whole 4 years, and not go to work without my pants on.
And faith has played a large role just in your family's life as well. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I've always had faith, but the older you get, the more you learn, I think, to how to let that guide your words and your direction and your decisions every day. I think for the Super Bowl, for me, it was the first time that I had to really understand what surrendering was, because the Super Bowl was so big and so huge that it was exhausting and draining at the same time. The year before, we had the Dallas Super Bowl. A couple of you were there with me. Dave was there with me. And Dallas had a lot of terrible things that happened at their Super Bowl. And I remember, there was an ice storm, and there were workers injured when ice came off the roof, and all these awful things were happening. And I remember sitting in the hotel there one morning, a year out from us, and the ESPN commentator said, the only thing worse that could happen in Dallas right now than what's going on with the Super Bowl is a locust invasion. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then I inserted my name thinking about that in Indianapolis. The only thing that could happen worse than Indianapolis, is, and I felt the weight of the world. And even though many of you and many people in this community shared the weight of that, Dave included, he was the vice chair on our board, it was still a heavy burden. And so for me, I relied a lot on my faith and my getting my direction and my wisdom from God, and making sure that I was staying still enough to listen to His direction. And especially in leading the staff, we had a number of very Christ-like staff members. Sean was one of them. He was my prayer partner. And when the stress and the schedule and the decisions and all the things that had to happen so quickly, I loved that we had a small group that we could pull together quickly and say, okay, let's block out all the white noise. What should we be doing here? And what is the right decision making that's faith-based and that we're going to feel good about? So I've taken my faith into my job. And then, back to your question, when your faith, your professional life crosses over with a personal issue, some of you know that my husband had a very deadly virus in 2014. It was sudden, and we almost lost him, and he had a very long recovery, and that was very public in the news. And so managing that publicly was a little challenge for me, but the outpouring of prayer and support I got from people that I didn't even know was carried me. And I know that you feel that way right now. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, this morning was a great example of that. Just thank you all. It's funny, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but it was, I was going to interview Shauna Niequist. Was anyone at EdgeX this year? I had spoken with Shauna on the phone, and we had gotten the questions together, and I had read her book, which is amazing. If anyone hasn't read it, Present Over Perfect. And I think it was, Dave, maybe a few days before the event that we got the diagnosis with Emma. And I was dealing with bronchitis at the time, a really bad case. In fact, that's how we found out. I went into the doctor for bronchitis, and they said, let me sneak you in for an ultrasound. And that's when we found out. And I just, talked to Dave and Liz and just said, you guys, I'm so sorry, but there's no way. And they did an amazing job with it and with Shauna. But ever since that moment that we made it public, and I had already announced that I was pregnant at that point, and so I had to go through this journey with everyone, and I wasn't sure how that was going to look. And I realized the power of the church. And, we talk about that somewhat in vague terms at times, but I'm sure you experienced it too. You can feel the power of prayer. You can feel you get through moments where you're like, I know I could not have gotten through that if people were not on their knees for me on our behalves right now. So I would just say that make sure that your perspective is rooted in God's promises, because if it's not, these waves and these storms are going to rock you and maybe sink you. And when you're rooted in his promises, there's nothing that can touch you, even death. So just make sure that you are reading them, that you are soaking in them, because then when the toughest days come, you will not be moved. So, but yeah, we talked about the power of prayer, and you actually pray with your peers and your employees. And that I found that really interesting, because you don't work in a Christian organization, yet you pray with your people.
Yeah, we've got a little prayer group. Doug Bowles and I lead a small prayer group at the top of the pagoda, and it's open to anybody that wants to come. And, Doug is very faith-based, as am I, and it's a great, especially because in May, there's a lot of people that come to our property, 600,000 people. And we pray for all those people, that people are going to make good choices, even though they don't always do. But when they come to the property, but that extra what we consider to be layer of protection for the people that we come, we want that rooted in prayer. So it's an important part of my job.
Who has been one of your mentors along your journey, and talk about the impact that they've had on you?
Jack Swarbrick, I've had a lot of incredible mentors, and that's one of the reasons I love Edge, is I think that mentoring is so important, and we've got to cultivate our own young leaders here in the city. And when I moved here in the 80s, Jack Swarbrick, who's the current athletic director at Notre Dame, he was an attorney in town. I worked with him on a number of projects, and then we formed a mentor-mentee relationship that I still have to this day. So it's a long time, because I'm well out of my 20s and 30s at this point. But he really taught me that feedback was a gift, and that it was sort of my first introduction to whole life mentoring, which is what Edge is about too, and not sort of compartmentalizing the different kinds of mentoring, whether it's business or personal or family or so forth. So Jack, over the years, he really taught me the value of feedback. And as a mentee, listening to that, and sometimes, not taking it as criticism, and not letting it hurt your feelings, because in that relationship, when there's trust, they're telling you things that they want you to hear to develop, and they have more wisdom than you do. I remember Jack told me one time that I needed to learn to be comfortable in silence. And that's a hard thing to hear if you like to talk. But we were in a situation, and I learned, I understood that about myself after he said it, that it's okay to be with people and have there be silence. and I was trying to fill time when it was silent because I was uncomfortable in silence at the time. And it was a really important thing for him to say to me, but I could have said, well, that really hurts my feelings, but I took it as a gift that he told me that, and he cared enough about me to tell me that. And so those nuggets along the way matter, and they the trust in that relationship that he would tell me things so that it was for my development. I still strongly believe that male-female mentorship and mentee relationships are important. I know there's a lot going on in the world, between men and women and all those things, but I think that very healthy, very positive, productive mentee, male-female, either way, relationships are great.
And I think that's really important this day and age too here. I think a lot of times we are either pressured into feeling like we need to separate totally, and and I think that that's a really important reminder that we can do a lot more together. Talk about why you took time with Edge this morning, what you see, the value that you see in this organization.
I love Edge. I'm at a point in my life where I'm only choosing to work with people and projects that really strike a passion with me. And Edge, not only are there great people involved, but the mentoring that Edge provides is unique to anything I've ever seen before. And the results that Edge is having are unique to anything that I've ever seen before. So I've known Dave for a long time. He worked on a Super Bowl committee with me, and I'm excited that I joined the board because I feel like there's so many great things they're doing, and it's still, while it's grown so much, it has still much more potential to grow, and I want to be a part of that, and I want to make sure that I'm investing in this city, in this generation, back to the things that Dave said at the beginning on the disengagement of the different categories of millennials. That's really concerning. And we've got to, now that I'm in that seasoned older group, I want to make sure that this city, this region, has opportunities for millennials to stay here, stay engaged, thrive, love indies, and really contribute back to the city. So that's why I'm involved, and the people. I'm a people person. Part of the reason I went to the track is I love all the people there, and I love all the people involved in Edge.
Well, Allison, I think we all can agree that you are a gift to this city. You have an equal measure of humility and strength. You're a rare find, and we're just really lucky to call you one of our own. So, Allison Melangton, everyone, give her a warm thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming this morning. I want to thank Brooke. She just came back to work after going through her family situation. She's a remarkable woman in this community that does live her faith on her sleeve. She's on TV every day. It's hard to be in a public situation like she's in every day and be an incredible example for humanity and for women. I want to thank you for doing this because she just came back to work. So thanks, Brooke.